Hi everybody, Michelle McClunan, astrologer and life navigator, and I'm bringing you another astrology update for the full moon, which happens to be a lunar eclipse on the 25th of March. And this one is the prelude to the total solar eclipse, which is going to be on the 8th of April. So we are officially now in eclipse season, which was always a really powerful time. So this eclipse is happening in the sign of Libra at 5 degrees of Libra. So if you look at your chart, if you've had your chart done before, you'll be able to see where this eclipse pattern and cycle and season is playing out in your chart. And so it'll be anywhere from kind of 3 or 4 degrees right up until in the 20s degrees of Libra and Aries. That's the area in your chart where this will actually be playing out. So if we look at the eclipse, this is what we call a penumbral eclipse, which is not a complete eclipse. It's a lunar eclipse, which is basically a full moon, where the sun is opposite the moon, but there is actually a shadow passing over. So the moon looks like it's being shadowed. So the moon is being eclipsed. So when we look at the energy of a lunar eclipse, it is always a culmination and a letting go. It's kind of ending a cycle in our normal lunar cycle, but an eclipse is a much longer cycle as well. So this one really is a release and a wrap up. And there are many reasons for it. First of all, the lunar eclipse is aligned with the south node of the moon. Eclipses happen when the sun and the moon and the interaction between them are aligned with the nodes of the moon. So this one is actually aligned with the south node, which is basically our karmic patterning, our conditioning, our past lives, past issues, baggage that we've carried in, and stuff that we're actually balancing and letting go of in this life. So this new moon is aligned with that south node, which means that is what's coming up for release. That's the energy of it. The solar eclipse will be actually aligned with the north node, which is much more aligned with our destiny point, our solar purpose, what we're doing here, what we're moving towards. So the two of them definitely work together. So this full moon is definitely a release point. It's a culmination point. It's a closure. If you like, it can be a harvest as well. It's where things are ready to actually be picked and cleared. It's a wrap up, and it's a wrap up of a longer cycle as well. It's very definitely goes back to last year's eclipse season, which was also in April. And this is very interesting because if you look at the chart, I'm just going to put the chart up for you, you'll see that the moon is on the one side of the chart and there are a whole lot of planets on the other side. And what we call that in astrology is a bucket. You'll also see that other little glyph or symbol, which is the south node, but that's not a planet. So the only planet that's actually on the one side of the chart is the moon, and the rest of them are all on the other side. And a bucket is really where everything on the side where there's a whole lot of planets gets served up through whatever's on the handle. So the moon is the handle. So it's actually being served up through our emotional, instinctive, feminine nature, whatever's on the left-hand side. So when we look at that dynamic, it really is, because of the moon being in Libra, there's a very, very strong focus on relationships, on mirrors, on shadow work, on what the other person standing in front of us is bringing up for us in our solar journey, which is the sun in Aries, and it's aligned to the north node in Aries, which is where our lunar eclipses are happening right now. So it's the solar purpose, or the sun, which is allowing us to see the reflection in the unconscious, habitual childhood reactive patterns. And this is helped or assisted by our relationships with other people. So in other words, other people are bringing our unconscious patterns, our reactions, our conditioning, our insecurities to the surface to help us to see it so that we can actually make different choices and wrap up the cycle. This is aided and abetted by Venus, which is the ruler of the full moon. So Libra is a sign of balance and harmony and relationship, beauty, peace, the scales of justice, and the ruler of Libra is Venus. Then we look to see where Venus is, and Venus is in a conjunction, which means a tight connection with the planet Saturn. Now, when Saturn and Venus come together, and they come together every year or so, but they only come together in Pisces once in a long time. So the last time they came together was 1996. So this is a closure of that whole cycle as well. So you can think back to what was going on for you in 1996, and that particularly pertaining to relationships, and that might be closing for you if you're old enough to have been experiencing that at that time. So what was going on for you then might be a closure now. So Venus is in a connection to Saturn, Saturn being the teacher planet, Saturn being the one who shows us our issues, it teaches us, it matures us. So this can be a maturing of a relationship. It can be the maturing of how you are in relationship. It can be the beginning, the ending of a cycle of reactivity, of being triggered by another person, that same old sort of argument that you may have with other people. It can be the end of that and the beginning of something new. And this goes right through to the solar eclipse, which is in 2 weeks' time. And that sets a theme for much longer than a normal new moon and full moon. So it has much longer reach because an eclipse is much more powerful. So relationships are definitely up in the spotlight. What are relationships bringing for us? That doesn't mean only intimate relationships. It can mean neighbors, it can mean the person standing in front of you, whoever that person is. If they are triggering you, if they are irritating you, it's to look at whatever pattern that person in front of us is bringing for us. It could be that this person is also reflecting something beautiful in us. It could be that this person is reflecting the loving, peaceful, gentle, caring side of us. It could also be that the person is reflecting the opposite of that. So Libra is the sign of peace, balance, harmony. So we have a whole lot of energy in Aries, which is the sign of self, and it's associated with Mars, which is the planet of war. So I see this time as really being a question as to, do we want to go to war with somebody that's standing in front of us? And if we're on our own, are we going to war with ourselves as well? Because it's always a choice to go to war. So in other words, to step into conflict, or to actually stay in the center. And the scales, if you look at the scales, the place where it's most balanced is right in the center of the scale. So Venus and Saturn are both in the sign of Pisces. And Pisces also represents the end of a cycle. So in other words, Venus moving through Pisces, it's the last sign in the zodiac. She moves through Pisces before she moves into Aries. So she's at the end of her cycle. Mars is actually just moving into Pisces. So he's nearing the end of his cycle. Saturn is in Pisces. He's still going to be there for another year and a half. He's also at the end of a cycle. And we have this culmination, this lunar eclipse, which is the end of the cycle. And a full moon is always the end of a cycle. So there's a big cyclical ending here. And obviously that opens the way for a new beginning. On the 18th of April, we're headed towards this. We have an alignment between Jupiter and Uranus. And that's, astrologers are kind of getting quite excited about that because it's quite invigorating, and it can mean a real awakening for humanity. It can definitely mean expansion, the opportunity to free ourselves from those old patterns, the opportunity to become more equal in our relationships with others. So this is a big month in astrology. April's a big month. 2 eclipses, lots of planetary movement. This particular lunar eclipse is actually assisted by Pluto, because Pluto is usually referred to in the negative, because Pluto is the planet of death, rebirth, and regeneration, and it often is aligned with things that we have to get rid of, things that are dying, or big things that are coming to the surface, which might not be that comfortable. Pluto is involved in this new moon, but in a favorable alignment. So it feels for me that Pluto is actually assisting us in actually bringing to the surface these patterns, these old conditioned patterns, with love and acceptance, because we don't know where those patterns have come from. So for us to hold a space for our own stuff to come to the surface and for other people's, so to find compassion, which is Venus and Saturn in Pisces. Can we find compassion? Can we be gentle? Can we be accepting? Can we surrender to whatever's happening in front of us without projecting our own issues onto the situation or to the person? That's the energy of Aries and Libra. So Aries, when the sun is moving through Aries, which it is now, it's definitely about us stepping into our courage, stepping into our uniqueness, allowing ourselves to be who we are, to live our truth, to live our authenticity, but to also look at what the other person, other people in our lives is bringing for us, what they might be actually teaching us through something which might be considered irritating to the ego part of us, or something that we might not see in ourselves. There might be a blind spot. We also have Chiron, the wounded healer, in a very close alignment to Mercury. Now that is the healing of old conditioned mind patterns. Those things that keep going around and around and around, unconsciously or subconsciously, those patterns keep repeating themselves, and those will often repeat themselves in relationships. Remembering that the first relationship we have is the relationship that we have with ourselves. So if that isn't okay, if that is wobbly, then that's going to penetrate out into other relationships. However we see ourselves is a reflection of what we see in the world. So if we can't accept ourselves, we're going to find it very difficult to accept somebody else. We're going to find it very difficult to accept the world and what's going on. If we have acceptance, if we have love for ourselves, that then ripples out into the universe, into other people's energy field, into the energy field as a whole. And that again, that's Venus and Saturn in Pisces, which is we are all one on that level. We're all connected. So even though I might have a body and you might have a body, energetically we're definitely connected. If you take the body away, there's pure energy. So can we actually connect with ourselves as energetic beings and see this person in front of us as the person who is actually assisting us in our soul's evolution, which is Pluto in an alignment to this moon, in a favorable alignment. So it's a real opportunity for expansion, for healing, for seeing our patterns, not with judgment, with being gentle and kind to ourselves and others as we actually move through these times of great, great change, internally and externally, where the external is so kind of unreal in many respects, is so unpredictable. Things are happening at such a speed that where do we find our sense of peace? Libra. Where do we find that sense of peace? We find it here. We don't find it by projecting into the future or into the past. Love is here, fear is in the future, resentment is in the past. So can we be more present at the center of the scale, at the center of the wheel? And in that way, move through this with grace, because we're actually given some help here by Jupiter and Uranus, which are moving into that beautiful alignment to liberate us, and Pluto, which is actually saying, right, look at this situation from a higher perspective. Look at it objectively. Look at your reactions objectively. See if you can step back before you react, before you sort of hit back at somebody. See if you can actually step back into your own being and saying, what is this bringing up for me? And one of the tools that we use quite often is if you feel yourself triggered by somebody, if you feel yourself judging somebody, which also happens at this time of the year a lot. So in other words, you might see someone as being inconsiderate. So-and-so is inconsiderate. Just add the 3 words, just like me. Or somebody is irresponsible. And then I've done that. I've been that. Somebody is not clear with their communication. Where am I unclear with communication? Very often it's difficult to see our own shadow. So we need somebody else to show it to us. And sometimes it's not absolute. I mean, if someone's abusing you and you're not an abusive person, it's not exactly that. But there's usually some truth in it. There can be a time when you've abused yourself, when you've betrayed yourself, even though you don't necessarily consciously betray or abuse anybody else. So that's the shadow work that's actually enabling us to step into the light of our true awareness, our truth. So very powerful energy this month. So really, really take it easy on yourself, take it easy on others. See if you can actually just bring yourself back over and over again into the center of the scale as many times as you can, as often as you can. Up the meditation, up the time spent in nature. See if you can switch off the cell phone for a bit and just sit and be. Just see what it does when you actually just sit and be who you are. Allow whatever comes to light to come to light without distracting yourself. Because a lot of the time that's very difficult for us to do because it's not easy to face ourselves in all of us. This week I actually was drawn to this little book called Opening Doors Within by Eileen Caddy from a Findhorn Foundation, where I went in 1997. And she wrote this beautiful book which gives you a different sort of thought, a different inspiration every day. She was very, very connected. She had these downloads very regularly. Her guidance for March the 25th, the lunar eclipse, is this. As more and more love is released into the world, a wonderful healing is taking place. It's like a balm poured into wounds, healing and making whole. Love starts within the individual. It starts in you. And it grows like a seed, bursting forth and revealing great beauty and wholeness. It is what is taking place now. Many souls feel that something is happening to them, and they are bewildered and don't realize what it is. They search without, hoping to find a clue which will show them what is taking place. Other souls feel a stirring, but are afraid of what they feel. For it is new, it is strange, it is unknown, and they try to shut it out. Nothing will be able to stop this release of love. It is like the genie in the bottle. Having been released, it cannot be put back again. It cannot be hidden or ignored. Gradually, it will begin to reveal itself in everyone. It has come to stay. And I really, really love that inspiration by Ali Caddy because it is so significant to our times. You know, so often we look at the world and we see the bad, we see the evil, we see the imbalances, the lack of tolerance, the wars, the conflicts, the collapsing of structures, and we lose sight of the good that's happening as well. We were having a discussion about it yesterday. You know, good is not publicized. People being in joy and peace and harmony doesn't get to the newspapers or generally to social media, or they don't make YouTube videos about it very often. What we see is the difficult, the bad, the ugly. And so we start to see the world as that, and it's not that. And there is a rising up of the power of love, which is oneness, which is connection, which is our true beingness. And this is growing and growing and growing. The mind, which is, we live in a very mind-based world, is very connected with the other, with the future, with goals, with getting somewhere. If we can live in this place of peace and love and harmony within ourselves, that ripples out into the field. So this eclipse season is showing us that very clearly, as are all the other planetary alignments showing us that too. So wishing you all the best for this lunar eclipse. I would suggest you do some kind of a process, some kind of a release. You can light a candle, you can make a fire, You can write down what you want to release and put it into the fire. It's quite alchemical to do that. It's good to do that. Just see what you need to release, what you're letting go. Old patterning, old patterning, old ways of getting into an argument or a conflict with someone, that if you change it, it might change the dynamic. In fact, it probably will change the dynamic. Because as you change, the reaction from the other also changes. So as you change your lens, the world changes. And the other person sees a different reflection, and they reflect something back to you. So if you want more gentleness, be more gentle. If you want more kindness, be kinder. If you want more peace, be peaceful. So that's what this full moon lunar eclipse is saying to me. I hope this helps. If you did appreciate this and liked it, please like it, because that helps get it out there more. And if you haven't subscribed, subscribe and hit the notification button. And if you'd like a reading to see where the eclipse season is playing out in your chart, you can book one with me by going through my website, and the details are below. Thank you so much for listening or watching, and much love to you.